know what? I can be happy and be a Christian. And it flows out of the eschatology, that eschatology of optimism. So I know if a dispensationalist hears this, they're going to drive, oh, we're optimistic too. We're just not optimistic about this world. We're optimistic about the next. I get it, guys. And I love you. All right. You know, it's cool. We're good. We're friends. But at the end of the day, that was not the atmosphere when I was through the 90s and the early 2000s, when the Tim LaHaye books and the Jerry Jenkins books were all the rage and everybody was listening to Left Behind. It wasn't about having an optimistic look to the future. It was about, hey man, you better be ready, because when the rapture comes, things are going to blow up, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. And that can certainly weigh on a person's disposition.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective, I grew up dispensational without even knowing what in the world that was. My family was kind of in and out of churches, but looking back, we were kind of in a dispensational Pentecostal leaning church. And my family constantly played not only Left Behind, but there were like these knockoff versions of Left Behind. I don't even know what they were called, but I just remember them constantly.
Tribulation Force, all that. Yeah.
Something like that. And looking back, like not even before I'm a post-millennialist, but before I came to that understanding, I would look back at when I would lay down at night and just be terrified all the time. Oh, the rapture's going to come. You know, I didn't do enough today, or I sinned too much. And my whole head was just messed up at the time. And another one of these stories, my parents, this was a big thing, I think, during the probably late 90s, early 2000s, probably more late 90s. It was like the Christian Halloween stuff. Mm-hmm. We went to a church and they put on this whole skit to scare people, right?
Judgment House.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know what it was called. But we got in this van and, you know, they simulated the van crashing and these demons came in and pulled us off and walked us through this dark hallway and the screaming and all that. And you go through, you know, a room where Satan's supposed to be. And after you're terrified, you come out into this room and it's bright lights and everything, and everybody's bawling their eyes out and they're praying for them and trying to have this, you know, come to Jesus moment. And that's something that stuck with me my whole life. I'm like, what did my parents do to me? Like, what kind of trauma did they cause? And just looking back after being more optimistic, I'm like, that did affect me a lot. It really did. When I had that mindset of, you know, every day I'm thinking, you know, Jesus is coming back. You know, if my parents left the room for too long, I think the rapture happened, and, you know, I'm left behind. You know, I did something wrong. I didn't get chosen. So I personally do think that there is a huge place for eschatology in the joy conversation. You know, something that I've come to the last few years, and what it's been able to produce in my kids already. You know, and that's what I kind of take it from, is what am I going to instill in my kids' heads as they're growing up? I want them to be joyful. I want them to not be in a church that's necessarily just doom and gloom 24/7, but there's a mixture of obviously solid biblical theology, but also we can be happy. We can be joyous. We can do all of these things. There's not this dichotomy between, you know, obedience and happiness that I always grew up thinking there was. So it's definitely been huge for me. So yeah, dispensationalism, love you guys too. You know, I don't cast you off by any means, but man, it did a number on me.
Sobriety should not be misery. And that's what I think people think, is if you're sober minded, that means you're a miserable person. No. Also, I played the devil in a Judgment House. I totally did. I haven't always been who I am, right? Like there was a time in my young life when I played the devil, and I went to a play at another church where they actually had a guillotine set up, and they were taking people in and simulating the cutting off of their heads, because that's what's supposed to happen during the tribulation, was the beheadings. And I've seen some crazy stuff too.
See, it's one of those things we shouldn't be laughing about, but we're laughing about.
Nope. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Me playing the devil is pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh. It's just another one of your many titles, you know?
Well, let's not get that one. King of the Amillennialist and the Prince of Darkness.
Seated here at my right hand, the Lord for us.